So here we have stopped. Let me start the session again. Let me wait for 2 minutes so that everyone will come. Then we will start it. Yeah. I hope it is visible. We will wait for 2 minutes so that everyone will join. Sorry for the technical issues. There are some technical issues are there. Please bear with me. Even it will help you also for taking some time, some break also. That is good also. We'll start the session once everyone joins in it. We'll wait for everyone. Once everyone comes, we'll start the session. Yeah, everyone started coming. We'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes. There is some technical issue, Uma. Sorry for the inconvenience. I think computer was hang. We'll start this one. So now we will discuss the next case. Okay. Good evening, Nagaraj. Good evening. We'll wait for 1 minute. In the meantime, you can go through this question and tell me how many tables are required. If so, what is this ER diagram first? Can you tell me what is this ER diagram? What kind of relationship it is there? No problem, sir. We can understand. Thank you, Nagaraju. Can you tell me what is this ER diagram is saying? What kind of attributes are there? What kind of entities are there? What is the entity for the employee and what is the entity for the dependent? What kind of entities they are? Can you tell me? Can anyone tell me? Weak relationship. Good, good. Which one is a weak entity here? So I can say that it is an identifying relationship. Am I right, Uma? Can I say that it is an identifying relation? If so, which entity is a weak entity here? Yeah, weak entity. Good, Nagaraj. Good. Which one is a weak entity here? Dependent is a weak entity. Yes, good. Correct, Uma. Correct. Silas also said correctly, because the dependent entity is represented using the double rectangle, whereas employee is represented using a single rectangle. So I can say that dependent is a weak entity. And even if you see that employee EID is a primary key, or I can say that it is a candidate key. Am I right? So such key attribute is not there in the dependent. So whereas dependent name is a partial key. So that's why I represented using the dotteds. Okay. So employee has a key attribute called employee ID. What is meant by key attribute? Using that attribute, you can uniquely identify a tuple in the relation. Am I right or wrong? So if it is so, as I already said, the weak entity will have a total participation. Am I right? That is the rule. Is it clear? If you have a weak entity and it is having a relationship with a, or identifying relationship with a strong entity, always the weak entity will be a total participation. Now can you tell me how many tables are required here? First thing is that because we are converting this ER diagram to a tables, so we need to identify how many tables are required. Can anyone tell me how many tables are required? How many tables are required? Uma is saying 2 tables. Good. I request everyone to please press the like button. If you see the solution, we will have, I think I have not provided the solution. The thing is that we can shift this attribute since to the employee side. Am I right? So then I need only 2 tables. One table is employee, another table is dependent. Am I right or wrong? So in the employee side, you will have 4 attributes such as employee ID, employee name, salary and since. And in the dependent table, you will have 3 attributes. One is this dependent name and is the primary key of the strong entity will act as a foreign key or a referential entity in the dependent, because if I want to join these 2 tables such as employee and dependent, I should have a common attribute. Then only we can perform the join operation. Why we need a join operation? If someone has asked me to retrieve a information, that information cannot able to retrieve using only one table, then I need the information from both the tables, then I need to perform the join operation. Slowly we will introduce what is a join operation and what are the various types of join operations. Now you hear what I want to say is that if you convert into tables, the primary key or the key attribute of the employee, which is employee ID, will act as a foreign key. So in the dependent table, you will have the 3 attributes such as employee ID, dependent name and yes. And you can ask me which one will act as a primary key in the dependent. Can anyone tell me which attribute will act as a primary key in the dependent after making into a table? Can anyone answer this query? Let's see how many members can answer. I'll wait for 1 minute. I want everyone's response for it. Don't worry whether your answer is right or wrong. Employee ID. Only employee ID. In the dependent entity I am asking, in the dependent entity or dependent table, which one will act as a primary key? Think it, Uma. Sri and Sailaja. What about Nagaraj? Sorry sir, it's employee name or what? It is dependent name. Rakesh is telling combination. What is the combination? Dependent name and yes. No Rakesh. Let's see anyone can answer. Sivaram is saying dependent name. Only dependent name, if it is acting as a key attribute, then dependent will not be a weak entity. Am I right? If dependent name alone can act as a key attribute, then I can say that dependent has a key attribute. Then I can say that dependent is a strong entity. Then in that case, I cannot say it as a weak entity. But here they are specifying it as a weak entity. So you think it. Don't worry whether your answer is right or wrong. I hope you have understood. Sivaram Krishna, I think you have understood why dependent name, employee ID and employee name both combined will act as a foreign key. Where? In which one? Employee ID and employee name. Dependent name and employee ID. Good. Rakesh, now you are correct. Dependent name and employee ID combinedly will act as a foreign key in the primary key in the dependent table, because here dependent name is a partial key. That's what I am saying, that dependent name is a partial key. Meaning is that for an employee, let's take that. But someone has asked me this doubt also. It is interesting doubt. Let's take that I am Jagadish. Okay, my dependents will be my wife and my kids. So let's take that usually we will not keep my wife name to my daughter name. Am I right or wrong? So my wife name will be unique and my daughter name will be unique. But however, with my daughter name, I cannot able to identify uniquely any one of the entity in the relation. Means any one of the tuple in the relation. So that's why the dependent name is not acting as a key attribute. But however, with the employee ID and dependent name, both can combinedly act as a key attribute. Why? Jagadish is there, Jagadish daughter, Parnika, both can combinedly, I can able to uniquely identify a tuple in the relation. Am I right or wrong? Is it clear? So in this case, employee ID and dependent name both will combinedly act as a key attribute or a primary key in the table called dependent. I hope it is clear for everyone. Okay. Now we will discuss the next question. Let's take that I have many to one ER diagram is there, and I have two entities are there, E1 and E2, and I have some relation called R which is having the attribute called C1. Now if you see here, I have A1 is acting as a key attribute in E1 and E2 B1 is acting as a key attribute. If I want to convert this ER diagram to tables, we already discussed that two tables are sufficient. Am I right or wrong? Why two tables are sufficient? I can shift this attribute C1 to the E1 side. Am I right? Already we have discussed it. So two tables are sufficient. If two tables are sufficient, which one will act as a key attributes or primary keys? Here E1 is the table 1, E2 is another table. So in the E1 attribute, A1 is acting as a primary key, B1 is acting as a primary key in the E2. If you want to join these two relation, what you can do is that the primary key of the employee E2, you can make it as a foreign key in the E1. Is it clear? I hope you have understood. Two tables are sufficient. Is it clear? So that is what I have done. If you see that I need only two tables such as E1 and E2, and A1 is acting as a key attribute, so A1 will act as a primary key in the table E1. Similarly, B1 will act as a primary key in the E2. Now I need to join these two tables. I need a common attribute. So the primary key of the table E2 is acting as a foreign key in the E1. So I hope you have understood. If you still have any doubts, you can ask me. And similarly, if you see that attribute C1 is attached to the table E1. Is it clear? So we need that one. Now can you tell me how many tables are required for this one? Let's see how many members can answer. Let's see how many members can answer this one. Already we have discussed this case. Already we discussed that we need only two tables. Why? This attribute C1 I can shift to the entity called E2, because E2 is acting as a total participation, whereas E1 is not a total participation. So I can shift to the, no, Uma is saying one table. No, not one table, Uma. We need minimum two tables, because it is not both the side is total participation. If both the sides is total participation, we have already discussed that example, person and Aadhaar card. Am I right? There we need only one table. But if you see that E1 is not a total participation, E1 is a partial participation. So we need minimum two tables such as E1 and E2. Is it clear? Now this attribute C1 will go to the entity called E2. So in E1 table, primary key will be A1, and in E2 primary key will be B1. This is what, and the primary key of A1 will act as a foreign key, because the attribute C1 is there in the employee E2. So if we want to fetch the information, the primary key of the E1 table is acting as a foreign key in the table E2. I hope you have understood. So now we will discuss this next case. Can you tell me how many tables are required in this case? How many tables are required, and which one will act as a primary key in those tables? I want everyone's response. Don't worry whether your answer is right or wrong. Feel free to answer the queries. Uma is saying maybe 3. Vishnuvardhan is saying 2. Sailaja is saying 2. 2 tables, sir. Nagaraju is saying 2 tables. Think it, check it properly. Both are having one-to-one relation and total participation. Why you are confusing? I am not understanding. How many tables are required? Don't worry. You think it properly and you can answer it. I'll wait for one more minute. Rakesh is saying 3 tables. What are the 3 tables, Rakesh? Priyanka is saying 1 table. Sri is saying 1 table. Okay, good. 1 table is correct. But can you tell me what will be the primary key there? Let's see how many members can answer. 1 table I will agree. Priyanka is correct and Sri is also correct. Sailaja is also correct. Nagaraj is also correct. Good. I appreciate your efforts. But can you tell me which one will act as a primary key now? Whether A1 or B1? Let's see how many members can answer. Whether A1 will answer, means will act as A1 and B1 combinedly. Yeah, Priyanka is saying A1 and B1 combinedly. Uma is also saying A1 and B1 combinedly. What about others? Sri is saying A1 is a primary key. Rakesh is saying A1 and B1 combinedly or two different primary keys. Can anyone tell me for a single table how many primary keys are possible at max? At max, how many tables, how many primary keys can be there for a single table? Only one primary key, am I right or wrong? If you have more than one candidate key also, among them one will act as a primary key and rest of them will act as a secondary keys. So here A1 and B1 combinedly will act as a primary key. I forgot to make it because they are in far distance, but A1 and B1 combinedly will act as a primary key, because for a table we cannot have a more than one primary key, so A1 B1 combinedly will act as a primary key. I hope you have understood. If you still have any doubts, you can ask me. Yeah, correct, Silas, you are correct. Now we will discuss this case. Can you tell me how many tables are required? Many to many. Yeah, Rakesh, correct, you are correct. Now let's see. We will discuss this one, many to many. Can you tell me how many tables are required? Three tables, sir. Sri is saying one table, sir. Three tables. What are the three tables? Uma, what are those three tables? Yeah, Priyanka is also saying three tables. Good, I appreciate your effort, Priyanka. Can you tell me what are those three tables? I'll wait for 1 minute. I want everyone's response. Yeah, Silas is also saying three tables. What are those three tables and what attribute will act as a primary key in each table? Can you tell me? Combination of both primary keys E1 and E2. I did not understand, Rakesh. Combination of both primary keys and E1 and E2. I did not understand, Rakesh, your response. Can you elaborate it properly? One is A1, one is B1, and one is A1 and B1 are the primary keys. Yeah, good, Uma, that is good. So we have minimum three tables because we cannot shift this attribute C1 to any of the entities E1 and E2. So one table is for E1 where A1 is acting as a primary key. Another table is E2 where B1 is acting as a primary key. Another table is the name of the relation. Let's take that relation is R. Then we will have another table called R, which is having attribute C1 and also the primary keys of both the tables E1 and E2. If you see here, we need three tables. One table is for E1 entity, one table is for E2 entity, and another table 3 is for this one. So the primary keys of A1 and B1 of the table E1 and E2 combinedly will act as a primary key in this relation. I hope you have understood. Is it clear? Now we will discuss the final example and then we will end this session. Now can you tell me how many tables are required here? We have entity called E1, entity called E2, entity called E3, and we have entity called E4. And we have a a relation called, let's take that relation is R, and it is having an attribute called F1. Now can you please recollect what are the topics we have discussed in this session, and can you tell me how many tables are required? Even we are not worrying what kind of relation it is, whether it is one to one, one to many, all these things. So can you tell me how many tables are required here? I want everyone's response. Don't worry whether your answer is right or wrong. Five tables. Good, Uma, good. What are those five tables? You will say that E1, E2, E3, E4 and the relation. And in E1, A1 will act as a primary key. Will you agree with me, Uma? And in E2, B1 will act as a primary key. In E3, C1 will act as a primary key. In E4, D1 will act as a primary key. Now in the fifth table, which attribute will act as a primary key? Yeah, E1 with A1, good. E4 with D1, E3 with C1, E2 with B1 are the primary keys. Yet, good, Rakesh. But can you tell me in the fifth table, which one will act as a primary key? Or what are, first tell me what are the attributes will be there in the fifth table? A1, B1, C1, D1 collectively acts as a primary key. Good. So we will have five attributes in the fifth table, which is A1, B1, C1 and D2, and also not D2, D1 and then F1. So five attributes are there, and A1, B1, C1, D1 combinedly will act as a primary key. Okay, is it clear? So that is what I have discussed here. Are you able to understand? So in E1, E2, E3 and E4, and in the table 5 we will have the 5 attributes. Okay, so this is about the ER diagram. So we have discussed enough about the ER diagrams. In the next live session I will start about the relational algebra. Okay, how is today's session? I want everyone's response. How is today's session? I want everyone's response. Please respond me. You can give whether it is a positive feedback or a negative feedback. If it is a positive feedback, it will motivate me to teach further. If it is a negative feedback or any suggestion, I will try to improve myself. Because in this world, no one is perfect. Any suggestions you want to give? Or good, sir. Nagaraj saying good. Thank you, Nagaraj. Priyanka is saying good. See, I am not asking any answer for a question. I am just asking a feedback. Uma is also saying good. What about others? What about others? Rakesh is saying good, sir. Thank you, Rakesh. Sri is saying good, sir. What about others? Okay. So what I want to tell you is that I think you have, sir, you told that you will give around 30 questions. When you will give? Uma, I will provide the a website link, okay, in the description section of this video, or in my YouTube channel community. I will provide some 30 questions, not 30 questions there I will not provide. I will provide a website link. Okay, you have to go and register in the website. Then tomorrow there will be an exam for 1 hour. Okay, so what you have to do there is that you have to write the exam. Each question, it is a multiple choice question exam. You have to write the exam, and then you can submit your answers. There is no specific time, any time you can write that exam, but only for the Monday 24 hours. So it is not specific that 9 to 10 only you have to write the exam. The exam duration is 1 hour. I will provide the website link where you have to go and register and you can write the exam. Once you write the exam of 30 questions, some questions you can answer, some questions you don't know the solution. So you don't worry. In the coming Tuesday, meaning is that after 2 days, I will again interact with you all on at 5 p.m. Okay, so Tuesday 5 p.m. again we will conduct a live session to discuss those 30 questions. Okay, so you are writing the exam and then you can verify the solutions also in the live sessions. So we will do every week like that, so that you can learn the new concepts in a better way. Okay, is it clear? Yeah, kindly share it WhatsApp also, sir, please. Yeah, in my Telegram link I will provide, Uma, don't worry. Even you can find it in my community. If you subscribe to my channel, you can find the information in my community. That will be helpful for you. So I hope everyone have enjoyed the session. Okay, so I request everyone to share about my channel information with all your friends. I am doing this thing for free of cost and to motivate the students and to engage the students. Thank you, Uma, thank you. Okay, welcome for your wonderful compliment. Okay, so next session you need to bring all your friends also. Okay, is it clear? So Uma will bring 10 of his friends, Priyanka will bring 10 of her friends, and Nagaraju will bring 10 of her friends, and you need to share about my channel information with all your friends. Okay, is it clear? And what is our deal is that 30 questions are there. Let's take that Uma has done 10 questions wrong. So 10 into 3, 30 new users or 30 new students, she has to share the information about my channel. So let's take that Uma has answered 20 questions correctly, 10 questions wrong, then 10 into 3, 30 members she has to share about my channel. Is it okay? Is it okay, Uma? So you need to study well and you have to answer the exam. Don't worry if you are doing any mistakes. In Tuesday session, I will discuss all the questions. Okay? Nice to interact with you all. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for coming to my session. See you again on Tuesday.